This one was a stumble over. So Carl Truman was a recommendation. The Long Obedience, that was I'd read a few Petersons and thought I'd read another one and found it. But this one was a stumble over, Sabbath as Resistance. And I'll be honest, it was the title. I like the juxtaposition of the word Sabbath, as in the rest, with the word resistance. And the idea that somehow rest and resisting sit together. So I was like, where are you going here with this? So brilliant book. Brueggemann, one of the world's leading theologians, especially in the Old Testament, and always worth a read. But this book for me was remarkably challenging on the issue of busyness, because every conversation that you have with a pastor starts like this: hey, how you doing? You're busy, but good. And then we realize the busy has slipped out because it's such a descriptor of the life that we all live at the moment. Life is busy. And, somehow, were we to say not busy, people would question that more than we question busy. So when you say to someone, how's your week look? Yeah, it's not very busy this week. It's like they want to go, what's wrong? Has something gone wrong? Are you not as important as I thought you were? Because surely important people are busy. And I think this challenges it. It challenges it because it talks about the thing that's obvious, the Sabbath, the need to take space and have rest. And, as Brueggemann does, he opens up scripture to talk about it. But he really gets back to the fundamental principle of Sabbath, that Sabbath is about trust. That primarily the Sabbath is about how much you're prepared to trust God with what he's trusted you with. So the people of Israel get out of Egypt. They've been slaves for 400 years. Now, take any habit book, 400 years has definitely ingrained some habits. And in that, they come out of Egypt. Only Moses has known what freedom feels like. And he has to take them on a journey now that involves one day a week off. Because they've lived for 400 years with no days a week off. Because if you don't work, you don't get. And they lived in a hierarchy where everything from slave went up through the chain to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh didn't work, he got. But everybody else worked to give to Pharaoh. And in a consumer-driven society, it's a message we need to listen to. That we have got to trust God enough to not feel we have to hold on to everything all the time. So for those slaves coming out of Egypt, there is a day they don't have to collect food because it is given over to resting in the presence of God. In the presence of God, in the presence of family. And it challenges that fundamental principle that I need to have a job, and then I need a main side hustle, and then I need a little side hustle, because these are the things that prove I am built myself. And it challenges, let's trust the Lord. That I'm going to give not only a piece of my money, 10%, but a bigger piece of my time than I give of my money, a bigger percentage. I am going to give to him and trust him in the midst of it. So Sabbath breaks slavery, because it breaks that mindset that I have to work to get. So, and that then engenders trust in the Lord, that we say, hey, when I stop, I'm saying he's got it. As a leader, and I stop and I go, I'm unavailable today. He's got all those things that I am now unavailable for. As a pastor, I'm stopping and I'm unavailable to the church. The church might not like that, but if you're going to be healthy and well, you have to have times of unavailable so that you can be available well in the right times. And I think for me, this book challenges that the well-being of our lives doesn't depend on our ability. It forces us to go, the well-being of my life depends on the Lord. And I am going to trust him by, okay, I'm not working on this now. I am leaving it. And I think the other thing that it says it talks a lot about our value of people, because as they outwork the Sabbath, that they'd been slaves, but when they had servants and animals and people from other nationalities, when they had those people in around them, everybody got a Sabbath. So everybody rested. That meant everyone's worth was the same, everyone's values are the same, everyone's access to God is the same, and everyone's need for rest is the same. So it challenges some massive fundamentals. I really enjoyed that book.
I've always wondered, actually, because when I read the Old Testament, I always wonder why didn't their enemies attack them on the Sabbath? Because and it's that sense of trust, isn't it? They weren't just there, and they weren't working. They had to trust. How does Sabbath look like? What does Sabbath look like for you? What practically? How does that work? How do you create a sense of Sabbath? How does it look practically in terms of your diary and things like that?
Yeah, so for me, I'm blocking out time, and I have to actively get ahead of my diary and go. These are the times when I am unavailable, and so a little bit of again, it's long obedience. There's a repetition to it. So there's a day that I'm looking at. That is my day. That's the day that's clear. I'm making sure that nothing's going in that could hijack it. And on those occasions where something outside of my control, because that happens to us all. Something gets put in that you go that I should be off. Well, it's just not possible. I then find the time elsewhere to get that back. It's not toil. It's just me taking my realizing that that's time is valuable because of what it gives back to me. And then I think you've got to find the things, especially when you lead church and somebody says, listen, your Sunday's your Sabbath. Not if you're leading church, it's not. There's no question, this, Chris. That's an energy sapping day. You may enjoy it, you may love it. But at the end of it, you're ready for a break. So for me, it's not about what I do. There are certain things that I do want to do. I want to get outside. So I want to get outside, whether that's outside in the garden, doing that kind of thing, or it's outside getting out into the countryside. So I want to get outside. I want to hang out with my wife, and just be together and talk and catch up and all the things that go with that. And probably want to eat a nice meal. Something that we're either going to go out or we're going to cook and we're going to do that, and then I want to do some exercise. That's what I want to do, and then I might read a bit, and it might even be thinking reading, or it might not.
Yeah, and I think for any minister listening to this, it's we've got to dispel the myth that it's impossible for you to do
It's
it.
not,
It's got to
and
be possible, isn't it?
it gets really challenging when you're bivocational. Like that does get really challenging. And for me, in your introduction, I thought to myself, that sounds like a lot of hats that I'm wearing. GM of AOG, Audacious Foundation, Audacious Church. In fairness, the foundation takes very little of my time. We've got a brilliant team who do, massive amounts of it. But my Sunday is in church and I work for Assemblies of God full time. I don't work for church, I work for Assemblies of God. And I have to manage my time in conversation with, the people that I work for in order to create those spaces for me. In order to do that, I realize that's probably easier for me than other people, but I do think we have got to decide what's most important, and at least a day is most important for you every week.
Yeah, and the seventh day is our first day, and so that means that it's always was the first day of the week, and so we rest as a first importance, and even in Jewish culture the day starts at 6 p.m. So
Yeah.
so the day starts with rest, and so you start from that place of rest. And so sometimes it's going to have to be it's the classic kind of cliche story, but I think it holds truth that there's a story of someone that puts rocks into a jar, and they put smaller rocks and smaller rocks.
Yeah.
If you put everyone knows that story. It's really, really, really famous. But I think it's really true. I think Sabbath is probably the biggest rock that you've got, and so you've got to start with that. And so maybe the encouragement for ministers out there is to actually start from the opposite way round. Instead of trying to find time to put it in, put that in first and let everything fall around it. And maybe that's the best way to look at it from a different angle. So